I'm not sure about that I'm perfect, but I like to think that I take the best from both worlds.
He is a very smart guy.
Well, I don't think he would have gotten there if he wasn't that smart. Yeah, you need to have somebody who's a good friend, who's on your side.
Hello, I am Simon, founder of Hoy. This is Hoylight. Please welcome Thomas. Thomas is a dear friend of mine, Legal Counsel and Business Development Counsel. Welcome.
Thank you.
So basically, as Legal Counsel, one of the biggest issues I had personally when I started this company was also figuring out how to act on the international level in a restricted market. So why is it so hard to sell cannabis-related products, not just in the US, but internationally?
Well, one of the biggest problems is that it's a huge patchwork of rules and regulations and laws. So Germany has decriminalized cannabis, but what does that actually mean? Especially for someone who is in a cannabis-related business, you don't actually have anything to do with the herbs themselves. The US is another big thing because people think of the US as one big market. It's actually at least 50 markets, but probably even more. But there's a dichotomy between the states and the federal government. 30 some odd states, it's legal to use medically. In 20 some odd states, it's legal to use it recreationally. And it's not clear how you get permission to sell things in any of these markets. So that's what makes it really difficult.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, there's a lot of hurdles, but if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Probably so, yes.
Cool. So, like, you're Danish, half American. So
Yeah.
The perfect synergy between the two worlds. So Denmark is often described as the happiest country in the world. So why on earth would you go to America?
Well, one of the things, I grew up with very entrepreneurial parents, and so I think of myself as very entrepreneurial, and the US is much more entrepreneurial.
Definitely.
I like that you say that I'm the perfect combination. I'm not sure about that I'm perfect, but I like to think that I take the best from both worlds. So in Denmark, people definitely take their vacation, and I like to take vacation. In the US, that's sort of frowned upon. You don't get very much vacation as an employee, and people often don't take that vacation. But they're very entrepreneurial, and if someone has a great idea, it's easy to get people excited, and it's easy to rally friends and relationships and take advantage of new ideas and jump into a new market. And things like cannabis-related products, for instance, is like, okay, well, it's difficult to do, but it's a great idea. I know a lot of people who enjoy cannabis and who think that Hoyt's products are fantastic. I want to help you guys. I don't know exactly what my opportunity is here, but I want to help you because this is great. I'm sure we'll find an opportunity for me in here as well. And that's kind of the way that Americans think. And a lot of Europeans, Danes are, just slightly less entrepreneurial because they don't see that growing up.
Yeah, also I think the Danish system, it's really well put together, but it really is for like the collective mind more than the individual mind. It's like we live together, right? Where in America you have the opportunity to really, like, if you really individually want to push forward, there's really no true obstacles, and it's actually it's really favored upon to be able to push through and make something out of yourself by yourself.
Absolutely. And you see also the stories that people tell where you see like the Maersk Sealand and the story around the family and everything and how they've done things sort of for the benefit of the community. I mean, they've made a lot of money, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But then you look at the US and then you hear these stories like Mark Zuckerberg is a self-made billionaire. Well, I don't think he invited his 2 billion closest friends to join the network.
Yeah.
It still is a community effort, but it is understood in a very different light. It's understood as the result of individual effort, which of course is a complete myth. But those are the myths that people grow up with, and they see like, well, if Mark Zuckerberg could do it, I mean, look, he doesn't look that smart to me. He doesn't look like he's rocket scientist, so I could do this idea for sure. And I think that's one of the key differences between how people experience life in Denmark and the US.
Yeah, definitely. He is a very smart guy.
Well, I think I don't think he would have gotten there if he wasn't that smart. Yeah.
No, for sure. So at Hoy, we started the company globally day one, right? Which in hindsight could been a bit easier as we started with local markets, but very proud of having shipped to over half the planet so far in terms of countries.
And it's very impressive.
Yeah, so basically what's the challenges of starting an international company from day one instead of like focusing on your 4 markets in the beginning?
Well, one of the things is, again, sort of in perception, and I often talk about this interview with the Danish Prime Minister, and she's talking about Biden being president, and it's exciting because now that the green transition is starting in the US, and it's a big opportunity, and we need to get started with climate export. And I usually debunk them in reverse order because nobody in the US says, hey, we need to get started with climate import from Denmark. Nobody. And then the fact that she, even as the prime minister or the people who briefed her on this interview, thought to describe the US as a big opportunity, it's really complex. And the same thing is true. I mean, I'm just using the US as an example because I'm so familiar with it.
Yeah.
But from a global perspective, it's multiplied. But if you're in e-commerce like you are, the US has more than 13,000 sales tax jurisdictions, and sales tax is not the same as mumps, which is the sales tax like thing that you have in Denmark, and you have to file them 4 times a year. Sales tax you really should be filing monthly if you're doing a lot of business like that.
They're running out where your state nexuses are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what is the state nexus and what's the threshold?
Yeah.
And there are 50 states. Well, 2 of them aren't even landfast with the other 48. One takes 5 hours to fly to from the west coast of the 48 states.
Yeah.
So thinking of things as one large market or one large opportunity, that's a fundamental mistake.
Yeah.
But if you're going internationally, that creates a bunch of different problems. And I know, like, logistically, from shipping from Denmark to Australia just takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
And if you're selling a lot in one market, well, at what point when you're in that market do you need to have products stored locally, and how do you get them to a warehouse, and who does that, and how do they ship them out? What's the law? Who do you file taxes with? And basically, you need to have somebody who's a good friend, who's on your side, someone who, preferably someone where the meter doesn't start running every time you call them at the first second.
Oh, I'm saying
Somebody that you can call, you can ask for advice, but these complications are somewhat easier to do if you say, well, we started in Denmark, then we went to Sweden, we figured out everything to know about Sweden, then we went to Norway, then did things incrementally. But the way that you've done things, I mean, you've just run very fast and you've figured out a lot of things at the same time. I think that also works because it forces you into the mindset that, nothing's going to be easy. And we've done a bunch of things that were already very hard. And so just because something else is hard, we'll figure it out. Whereas other companies are in a few markets and they think, we've conquered the world. And then they go to...
the world is big.
Yeah, the world is big. The world is very big. The world is very complicated. And then they go to another market and that really throws them off.
Yeah.
So
we were having a conversation earlier where a large brand was moving into a new market, but they didn't want to change the labeling because the currency didn't fit on the label.
Make the tags just a smidge bigger.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a small thing, but again, it's a massive complication for a large operation.
Yes.
So what's the best advice you would give for people who would like to start a business in the US? Because one of the real benefits we had in the beginning was obviously, right, we were doing global in the beginning, but US is a massive market for us. It's almost 70% of our market share. And it's such an interesting country, but it's also an extremely complicated country when we're talking about the tax codes, for an example, and like registering the business and doing communications. You need to be extremely clear because it's also the country in the world where legal matters can have the biggest consequences.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tricky to navigate. So what's your advice?
Well, the first thing is assume you know nothing.
Yes, good advice.
Most people say, oh, well, I speak English really well. Yes, but you do not speak American. The Brits and the Americans, while they think they speak the same language, in fact, do not understand each other. had this conversation recently with a British client, and he said, "Tell me about hustle. That's a terrible thing. In the UK, that's like selling drugs in the alley." And I explained to him why it's bad and when it's good. You could have a side hustle. That's a good thing. You could hustle at work. If you're a hustler, yeah, that's not a good thing. And I told him, but on the other hand, just think about, you just mentioned you have a scheme for making your company successful in the US. In the US, a scheme is basically planning to sell drugs.
Yeah, true, yeah. Communication barrier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Assume you know nothing. Assume you don't understand what they're saying, and you will get along much easier. Assume you don't know the structure of anything, which basically is true. We really don't know as much as you think you do. The US isn't as technologically advanced. We still send out checks.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my mind.
Handwritten checks.
Yeah.
Crazy. The second thing is find out where your customers are. First of all, figure out who are your customers and where are they. I get a lot of people who say, we are a tech company, we need to be in Silicon Valley, and we want an investment from a venture capital firm. That happens to less than 2% of companies. The companies who do get investments are the companies who have already connected and engaged with their customers. Most likely your customers are not in Silicon Valley. That is almost never the case. But find out where they are. That's the second. The third thing then is very simple. Go to your LinkedIn, look at your contacts and connections, and then see which ones are in the US. And then call them. Say, "Hey, Thomas, I see that you're in Los Angeles now. Hey, remember me? We know each other from this. Could we set up a call? I have some questions for you." But reach out to everybody you know that's in the US, or anyone that's on your feed or your Facebook, Instagram, whatever, people that you're connected with, or just send a post on LinkedIn. Say, "Hey, I'm thinking of expanding to the US. Does anyone know somebody who would have an hour-long conversation with me about challenges, where to get started, how to get started?" That's probably the best advice, because it's easy enough to hire a lawyer who'll charge you $25,000, and at the end of that, you will realize that he did something other than what you wanted, other than what was actually necessary, because of the communication issues that we already talked about.
Yeah.
But ask somebody who's already done it. Ask somebody who's already made mistakes, learn from their mistakes, and then ask them, what should I do next? Who should I talk to next? That's the best, cheapest advice I could probably give anyone.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Use your network, and like one of the good things about already having established a relationship with people is communication will be much easier.
Absolutely. And if it's somebody that you know from your home country, wherever that may be, a lot of times they've spent some time overcoming these communication hurdles, and they can help navigate that for you.
Yeah, definitely. We mentioned this in our earlier interview, but it's so true with the quote, "Teamwork makes the dream work."
Yes, exactly. That's your extended network as well. And the fact that, you talk to somebody on the team and then you discuss some project, and they're like, "Well, I actually know somebody who could help." And that may not be something that was immediately clear that they had that connection, or that they knew, or they could help with that. But the fact that you have these conversations with people then expands your network and expands your company's reach, and allows you to avoid some of these pitfalls that we've talked about.
Definitely. Social equity is important.
Yes, very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I am humbled and super excited to have you part of the journey, and it's absolutely amazing to be able to work with you on a daily basis.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure being part of this team. It really is. Thank you for having me along this journey.
It was all mine.
Thank you.